uncertainty, maybe new tariffs, different levels of tariffs.
The Nasdaq plunged 2%, the S&P 500 dropped 1%, and GM stock plummeted 5% right after Trump announced a 25% tariff on cars and pharmaceuticals. What will happen to the U.S. economy?
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
We are facing the collapse of an entire industry as automakers will have to deal with higher production costs, which will push car prices up and directly affect consumers. Trump announced a 25% tariff on all imported cars and pharmaceuticals into the U.S. This caused the Nasdaq to drop 2% and the S&P 500 to fall 1%, while General Motors, GM stock, plummeted 5% immediately after his statement. But what did Trump say? He ignored it all, insisting it will self-correct. This sounds like a promise of an economic miracle, but in reality, there's nothing self-correcting when companies face a significant decline in profits and consumers are forced to pay even more for products that are already expensive.
In terms of drugs, medical drugs, different types of drugs that you need, medicines, it's in other countries, largely made in China, a lot of it made in Ireland. Ireland was very smart. We love Ireland.
One of the biggest issues Trump recently announced is the tariffs on imported pharmaceuticals. In reality, most pharmaceuticals are produced in China and Ireland, two countries Trump is targeting. Drug prices could skyrocket, putting even more strain on Americans who are already struggling with the cost of living, now facing the risk of being unable to afford essential medications. There is no plan for replacement. Trump stated that the U.S. would bring the pharmaceutical industry back to the country, but he provided no specific plan to replace domestic drug production. So the question is, if foreign pharmaceutical companies are hit with tariffs, who will be responsible for providing affordable medications to the American people? Or are we just driving drug prices up and making it impossible for people to access the treatments they need?
But every point in tariffs is worth more than tic-tac. So in order to get China to do, maybe I'd give them a reduction in tariffs as an example. Sounds like something I'd do.
While threatening to raise tariffs on allies like Canada, Mexico, and the EU, Trump says he might lower tariffs on China if they help him strike a deal over TikTok, a policy that is impulsive, with no clear economic or diplomatic foundation. This reveals the contradiction in Trump's policies, on one hand, confronting neighboring countries, and on the other, trying to ease tensions with China through ever-changing tariff decisions. The question is, will this tariff policy actually help the U.S. economy, or will it only increase instability in global trade relations? And are we heading into an undefined trade war where every decision seems based on short-term interests and failed diplomatic strategies?
Taken in over the relatively short-term period, meaning a year from now, but starting right away. I think we'll go from 600 to $1 trillion within 2 years. And I think we'll be right from the beginning, we're going to be at a very high number.
The forecast for Q1 2025 GDP is negative 1.8%, according to Atlanta Fed projections, and it could worsen if Trump's policies continue to negatively impact the economy. Meanwhile, in the fourth quarter of 2024, under Biden, GDP grew at 2.3%, showing a clear reversal in the U.S. economy. What's the reality? The economy is showing signs of recession with negative growth, while inflation continues to rise. This not only impacts businesses, but also threatens the financial stability of millions of American families. As living costs escalate and job opportunities become scarce, is Trump's tariff policy pushing the U.S. economy to the brink of recession? Or is it just a high-stakes gamble that makes the people pay the price? Are you ready to face the unpredictable consequences of this decision?
Over 91 million Americans once voted for him, but by the end of 2024, Donald Trump faces over 30 lawsuits, from financial fraud, tax evasion, to inciting a riot. So why do millions still believe in him? Michael Moore has an answer, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Well, it's not a proud day for this country. How could it be a proud day when a man who was not elected by the people becomes president of the United States?
These were the words veteran filmmaker Michael Moore said live on air. A statement like a razor, cutting through years of silence from mainstream media. This wasn't just emotional rhetoric. It was a strip down of every glamorous layer that had shielded Trump's image for years.
The average normal American wants to hear that. They actually believe that we don't like immigrants. We are immigrants. We are all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants, unless you are African American or unless you're amongst the first peoples that were here.
Moore made it clear. America is a nation of immigrants. By saying this, he completely undercut the divisive anti-immigrant narrative Trump had leaned on in every campaign. According to a 2023 Pew Research survey, 78% of immigrants in the U.S. felt directly offended by Trump's comments about the border and immigration.
Is going to be the biggest you ever recorded in human history. And it will feel good. For a day. Yeah, maybe a week. Possibly a month. And then, like the Brits, who wanted to send a message, so they voted to leave Europe, only to find out that if you vote to leave Europe, you actually have to leave Europe.
But Moore didn't stop there. He compared Trump to Brexit, a spontaneous, reckless decision that cost an entire nation. He warned that America could be next if it doesn't recognize the pattern.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's done a good job.
That's how Moore described Trump's behavior when under pressure. According to Gallup, 71% of Americans believe Trump never takes personal responsibility, the highest percentage for any U.S. president post-term.
That Donald Trump is a big believer in capitalism and free enterprise and the sort of thing that's driven us into the ground, this belief that you can just do whatever you want and it doesn't matter who gets hurt by it. And I don't really see him changing, but I think he knows he's been on TV, you know? I mean, he's a performance artist. He knows what to say and he knows how to make this appeal.
You think it's BS?
I think it's, well, please, I don't use that kind of...
Moore exposed the myth of Trump, the business genius. According to Forbes in 2022, Trump filed for bankruptcy 6 times, including Trump Plaza Hotel, Trump Taj Mahal, and Trump Airlines. This wasn't just bad luck. It was a system of repeated failure.
He knows something. He knows how to manipulate a dumbed-down population whose schools have been wrecked, whose media is just insipid and stupid and doesn't give people the facts about what's going on. So the public is easily manipulated by somebody like him, those who vote for him. He had record turnouts. He has the largest rallies.
Moore called Trump's political career a slow-motion car crash. In 2024 alone, Trump faced 91 criminal charges, including campaign abuse, tax fraud, obstruction of federal investigations, and inciting the January 6th riot. Trump isn't facing justice, Moore said. He's using the system to keep performing.
For me, Donald Trump outsmarted us all. And then there's a little throw up in everyone.
Yes, Moore even mocked Trump's ridiculous attempts to monetize his fame. According to the Washington Post, 1,000 pairs were sold in the first 2 days. But over 40% were returned. A perfect metaphor, Moore explained. If failure were profitable, Trump would be the richest man alive. But Moore's deepest fear wasn't Trump himself. It was the millions of Americans who still believe he's the only one who can save America.
You live here in Ohio, you know what I'm talking about. Whether Trump means it or not is kind of irrelevant because he's saying the things to people who are hurting. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is the human Molotov cocktail that they've been waiting for. The human hand grenade that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them.
And that is why this battle is far from over. Don't blink, because what comes next might just shock you.
Fox News just went dark on air while trying to defend Donald Trump's policies, but was strongly countered by Representative Greg Casar. These policies are destroying America.
If these puppet politicians want to represent billionaires instead of the people, then they should lose their jobs in the people's house.
Imagine this scene. Social Security offices in rural areas are closed, and the elderly, the disabled, the most vulnerable in society are forced to go to these closed offices to verify their information. If they can't make it, Donald Trump will label them as frauds and cut off all their benefits. It's hard to imagine a more cruel campaign when those who need help the most are abandoned by the government. This policy is a direct assault on the poor and the vulnerable, those who cannot defend themselves.
Elon Musk calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, saying that they'll eliminate billions of dollars. from Social Security.
While cutting Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, Donald Trump continues to funnel billions of dollars into Elon Musk's pockets through federal contracts. Remember, Musk is making $8 million per day from your tax money, money that you paid into the government budget.
No, Elon Musk makes $8 million a day from the federal government. Why are they looking at cutting Medicaid, which serves single moms, people with disabilities, or Social Security, instead of looking at the billions of dollars from the corporate class? It's because those corporations...
Musk isn't just getting money from contracts, but he's also negotiating even larger deals from the FAA, the State Department, and even Starlink. And all of this is happening right after Musk helped fund Trump's re-election campaign. This isn't about politics. This is oligarchic corruption. Now, your tax dollars aren't just helping the poor. They're being used to help Musk and other billionaires buy more private jets and increase their wealth. In addition to his policies towards the poor, Donald Trump also implemented inhumane policies towards immigrants. Hundreds of immigrants, including women, LGBT individuals, and legally seeking asylum, were kidnapped by Trump and taken to detention camps in El Salvador, a place that is inadequate to house them. Former Attorney General Pam Bondi called them not immigrants, but garbage.
Safe. This is President Trump's agenda to keep Americans safe, Maria. It's basic public safety. Get these people out of our country as fast as we can. They're not immigrants. They're illegal aliens who are committing the most violent crimes you can imagine on Americans. Murder, rapes. You know, ask the parents of all of these young women who have been violently strangled, raped, and murdered. And we are going to continue to make America safe again because that's President Trump's agenda.
This statement not only reflects racism, but also shows a heartless cruelty towards people who are in desperate need of help. This policy goes against all the humanitarian values and human rights that this country has long prided itself on. And now, after all of this, Representative Greg Kasser has strongly spoken out against these policies, and he didn't hesitate to expose the truth right on Fox News. He said,
"Of course, violence is dangerous and wrong, and those who commit it should be held accountable. And there are millions of Americans right now speaking out against their health care being taken away, speaking out against money being taken away from their taxpayer pockets and being handed out in federal contracts."
Kasser is one of the rare voices speaking out against the manipulation of the billionaires and conservative politicians. He calls for the protection of programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security while putting an end to the privileges for billionaires like Elon Musk. We need to return power to the workers, the people who are being disrespected, while the billionaires continue to enjoy privileges. Donald Trump's policies and their impacts are not just affecting a certain group of people, they are creating deep changes in society. Protecting welfare programs and maintaining fairness in the distribution of public resources is a crucial issue that we all need to care about. In the current political landscape, finding a fair and sustainable solution to balance the interests of the various social classes is still a major challenge. Stay tuned because we need to discuss how to improve these policies and ensure that no one is left behind. Over 200 fans donated more than $10,000 to commission a portrait of America's 45th president. And his response? I'd rather have nothing than have that. So why did Donald Trump lash out at a gift from his own supporters? This week, Donald Trump once again set social media on fire. But this time, it wasn't over a speech. It wasn't about policy. It was about a portrait. The painting, hanging in the Colorado State Capitol as part of a presidential tribute wall, has been there since 2019. But only now has Trump lashed out publicly. On Truth Social, he wrote, "It's distorted beyond anything I've ever seen," and then added, "I'd rather have no portrait at all than have this." Trump accused Colorado's governor of intentionally showcasing an ugly portrait to make him look bad. He even took a jab at the artist, who once painted President Obama, suggesting she had lost her touch over the years. The comments went viral. But what truly shocked the internet was the truth behind the portrait. As Trump's Truth Social post went viral, reporters and internet sleuths quickly dug into the portrait's backstory. There was no plot from the Colorado governor, no political sabotage, no hidden agenda. In fact, the truth was far more ironic. The portrait was funded by Trump's own loyal supporters, over 200 of them, who raised more than $10,000 in just 36 hours during a grassroots campaign in 2019. Their goal? To give the 45th president a place of honor on the Capitol's Wall of Presidents. They even held a formal unveiling ceremony.
The portrait brings a smile or a scowl to your face. Remember that you have the right to do so because this is the United States of America.
The internet called it heartbreaking comedy. One user asked if he didn't know the painting's been up for 5 years. Who's really managing his public image? Others recalled a 2020 incident where someone famously swapped his portrait with Vladimir Putin's in a viral prank. But this time, there was no prank, no Putin, no opposition party, just Trump, trolling himself, in public. While Trump was busy fuming on social media, another major cultural moment was unfolding in Washington, D.C., the Mark Twain Prize ceremony held at the Kennedy Center honoring comedian Conan O'Brien. But it wasn't just about Conan. The event quickly became a second viral storm, thanks to a night full of classic American satire, directed at people very much like Donald Trump. Comedian John Mulaney opened with a sharp jab. It's an honor to be here at the Kennedy Center, or as it'll soon be called, the Roy Cohn Center, for strong men who love cats. The line drew laughs and eyebrows, subtly referencing Trump's infamous mentor, the late Roy Cohn, a symbol of raw, unchecked power. But the real mic drop came from Conan O'Brien himself. In a rare moment of sincerity, he said, "Twain didn't write to flatter the powerful. He mocked empire, challenged arrogance, and stood with the powerless. For Twain, comedy was a weapon, meant to punch up, not down." No one said Trump's name, but everyone in the room got it, and so did the internet. In the end, one timeless quote from Mark Twain began making the rounds across forums and social media. It was written over 100 years ago, and yet it fits today's moment with uncanny precision. Politicians are like diapers. They should be changed often, and for the same reason. The quote wasn't aimed at any one person. It was a reminder about the nature of power and how easily it can cloud self-awareness. It was also a quiet truth that sometimes the biggest punchline doesn't come from the stage, but from the way powerful people react to a portrait. And if just one portrait can stir up a storm, just imagine what happens when bigger things begin to break. Canada, a longtime energy partner, has shut down the $103 billion oil export pipeline to the U.S., leaving Washington unable to respond in time. Canada stops supplying oil and gas to the U.S. Canada, the largest energy supplier to the U.S., shocked Washington with its decision to halt energy exports. This immediately caused a surge in gas, oil, and electricity prices in the U.S., leading to unprecedented disruptions in the lives of millions of Americans. How will Americans cope with the rising prices of essential goods, including fuel, food, and public services? From daily commutes to flights, everything is being affected. The aviation industry faces increased fuel costs, while transport, manufacturing, and many other sectors are struggling due to the soaring energy prices. The reason behind Canada's decision: for years, the U.S. has imposed heavy trade tariffs on Canadian goods, believing that its neighboring country wouldn't dare to retaliate. But that belief is now being shattered. Canada had long warned that this could happen, yet Washington paid little attention. Eventually, a strategic shift was made. Canada not only stopped oil exports to the U.S., but also signed long-term contracts with other countries, particularly China and India, the two largest energy markets in the world. This is not just a political reaction, but also a long-term economic strategy to reduce dependence on the U.S. With these new agreements, Canada has opened the door to becoming one of the leading energy suppliers for major global economies, Europe and Asia, ready to replace the U.S. So when the U.S. suddenly loses its critical energy supply from Canada, who will step in to replace it? Europe and Asia have quickly stepped up. Canada has signed billion-dollar agreements to supply oil, gas, and electricity to countries in need of a stable energy source, especially Europe, which is seeking to replace energy supplies from Russia. At the same time, China and India have secured long-term agreements to ensure energy supplies for their rapidly growing economies. Canada's export ports and pipeline systems are now not only directed towards North America, but also shifting their energy flow towards Asia and Europe. This not only creates a massive shock for the U.S., but also completely changes the global energy balance. The U.S. now faces not only an energy crisis, but also loses its strategic position in the international energy competition. With the loss of hydroelectric supply from Canada, states like New York, California, and Michigan are facing the risk of rolling blackouts, especially during the winter months.